I was born in Spokane, Washington.
And where did you live growing up?
Kind of all over the U.S. Till I was about 4, we lived in Oregon and Denver. Then we moved to an Air Force base in Southeast DC. There for about 4 years, and at age 9 we moved to Idaho Falls, population 40,000. Moving back to Northern Virginia in the golf course community, there were more cul-de-sacs than actual through streets. There were only 2 ways to enter the community, which was on an 8-mile long strip, one at each end. It had no connection to anything outside of it, and nobody walked. There were sidewalks maybe through a third of it, and nobody used the sidewalks. No kids playing in the streets. The parks were used only for drug deals. Despite this, it was, in theory, one of the nicer neighborhoods in the entire region. I'm the oldest of 4 daughters. I'm 26 now. My youngest sister is 19. She'll soon be turning 20, so it's a fairly close spread. We were all close growing up, probably brought a lot closer by the fact that my second youngest sister is a technically terminally ill quadriplegic. She's been in a wheelchair since the time she was 18 months old, and I would no longer call her very ill, although she was very ill as a young child. It took my entire family's devotion at some points to keep her alive and keep her interested in being alive. We ended up living with my father, who was a single father, raising and supporting 4 children, one of whom was quite ill, and it takes a lot of money in the States unless we wanted to let her go live in a home, which was absolutely out of the question. So yeah, I did have to step in pretty drastically in a leadership role there around the house. I was very involved with architecture in high school. I actually worked at an architecture firm in high school, and from architecture, I ran out of architecture classes in high school to take, and I started taking engineering classes. At that point, I was very interested in becoming an astronaut, and engineering was a really good way to do that. I had written a grant to the Open Society Institute to study in Greece, small islands that had developed with motorized transport versus those that developed without motorized transport, and provide a series of documents, largely maps, and some written pieces about my findings. And I got it just at the time that I was kind of having the crisis with journalism at the Baltimore Examiner. So I took off. I went to Greece. New urbanism is largely an attempt to return to what's called the traditional neighborhood. So that's where it's fairly dense, fairly compact, mixed use. It's not just residential and then shopping and then industry and commercial, but everything is mixed together. New York is a great example of the traditional neighborhood. You can generally get absolutely everything that you're looking for within a 6-block walk of where you live. Walk is another keyword. To be walkable. Walkability has recently started to be seen as a keyword, but it's absolutely key. The ability to walk, not just having sidewalks, but having streets narrow enough to cross. I think one of the most important things that new urbanism and good traditional or progressive planning in general puts forward is the idea of functional green space. You know, everybody says, oh, we want more green, we want more parks, we want more green space, but you know, a berm along a 4-lane highway that's planted with grass and maybe some trees, you know, your kids can't go play soccer there, you can't go and sit down and have a picnic. It's not functional, it's not useful green space. Whereas, you know, right now at the High Line, we're sitting on top of what used to be a rail line. But it is very, very functional green space. And the distinction should be made between suburbia and sprawl. Not all suburbs are bad, and sprawl occurs in farmland, it occurs in the suburbs, it occurs in the middle of dense inner cities. So really we're fighting sprawl, we're fighting these elements that disconnect community.